What is up, world? It's your boy Ton, and you are listening to the Wonton Wealth Podcast. Here, I'm going to unravel anything and everything commercial real estate related. And more importantly, we're going to add abundant value. So if you're ready, buckle up your eardrums. All right, here is the second part of my conversation with Leo Young. I hope you learn a metric fuck ton. Let's talk about the underwriting for a second on some of these mobile home parks and RV parks. For an operator like myself in the commercial space, I'm sure multifamily as well. We look at demographics, look at the market in general, job growth, drivers, right, household income, things like that, just from a general overview perspective. Now, with each different asset classes, I have different caveats that I have to consider, right? The leases being one of the biggest things there. But when it comes to mobile home parks and RV parks, what are a couple things, or if it's just one thing, what have you, that is different in the underwriting that you have to account for versus all of these other alternative asset classes?
Hmm. A couple of things that make mobile home park underwriting unique. One is the tenant-owned home versus park-owned home income. A lot of people like you'll even see brokers do it that they'll just factor in the entire income and they're like, hey, this is the NOI and like here's the cap rate. And on paper it looks attractive, but then once you dig into it, you're like, okay, well, if you separate the home income from the tenant-owned home income, then it's like really not that it's like a five cap or something. And you're like, yeah, doesn't make too much sense. So that's one of them. And also another is the utility setup also changes your expense ratio. So when you're calculating kind of like pro forma, like, okay, where are the numbers going to be? You should factor that in as well. Especially like CapEx work too. So, if there's like a treatment plan, like what's it going to take to maintain it? Do you have to replace certain components, lagoons? Like, do you have a letter from the DEP saying like you have to, wrap it up, right? And that's going to cost like a few hundred thousand to do it.
Right. Yeah. Now, do you put in reserves in your underwriting for turnovers, etc.?
You know, Turnover not as much. So the difference between kind of like apartments versus mobile home parks is that the occupancy is much more sticky. So it's not like it goes up and down. So you'll see, people down south like they got kind of a little bit caught by the wave, that like these past few years, like when the rates went down, like the rental rates went down, like tenants moved out or something, they're just like struggling to keep occupancy up. In mobile home parks, like once the tenant moves in, like they don't want to leave because it's the best value in town. Like where else are you going to find a cheaper place to live in for a monthly cost that, right? I mean, is cheaper than other alternatives, and you can build equity over time. It's like it's a no brainer. So the tenants or like the residents in mobile home parks, they are typically there for like 10 plus years, as opposed to like a year or two within apartments. So the occupancy is much more sticky. The focus should be put on how feasible is the infill? How feasible is it to bring in additional units? Because that's a tough kind of equation to pencil. And a lot of operators, like, they just sell homes at break even essentially, because it costs a decent amount to prepare up the pad and like utilities and all that stuff, and then even more to bring the home in, and then you have to factor in like the sale costs. And you're like, well, hey, if you are 90K break even cost, like, and a single family home's like 120, like why would a resident like want to move in here as opposed to like their own home on their own kind of plot of land? So there's trade-offs. And also, I mean, even if that was the case, there's people that do prefer to live in a mobile home or a manufactured home, just purely because of the vibe of it. Because you're living in this place that feels like a subdivision. You have your own
Yeah.
parking space. It's like, like an HOA kind of feeling, instead of like, okay, like I got to figure out utilities on my own. So that does change too.
Perfect. Okay. Let's talk about the operational side for a little bit. So, what when you're managing these assets, what operational changes create like the most value? Um, I guess the quickest. Like it could be, I know in the multifamily space they do rubs, right? Um, Things like that. What are you doing in the mobile home park that is creating the most value?
Yeah, so there's a few kind of main value levers. One is buying right. You make your money when you buy, right? That's like what people say. So like making sure that you're disciplined with your underwriting, you're being like conservative. So that's one. Another one is improving the financials. So whether it's billing back utilities, sub metering, right? Because then that would encourage people to not use as much water, and then also just get that expense kind of reimbursed and recaptured. And also just rebidding vendor contracts. Sometimes when we buy the properties, they're from mom and pop owners, they're like individuals. They just kind of look at the park's NOI like their piggy bank. They're like, I'll just need to make enough money. The rest is fine. I'll do this, I'll do that. And it's like, you really don't have to. So there's like a lot of expenses that can be kind of shaped up a little bit. And then after that, there's the kind of rent arbitrage because, a lot of the times, like the rent is below what's valuable in the market or like what's comparable in the market. So there's some degree of you can bump up the rents responsibly to closer to market and for it still to be a compelling housing option. And then finally, there's infill. Infill is the slowest, hardest, most difficult, but also it provides value. It's kind of like a mini development project. You have to get like permits approved. You have to like run the calculation, see if it makes sense, and then actually sell it, attract the right person, get them qualified for financing. So, yeah, I mean that's kind of just the main levers.
So infill, is it more so like one manufactured home in a lot, or is it where you have a ton of land or additional land on your plot where you can add, let's say, another 20 mobile homes?
So it's a bit of both. There are incremental lots that you can just add on these homes onto. Sometimes it does entail just developing new lots. If there's a tract of land that's just right there, maybe you can get an engineer to come in, draft you plans, and be like, okay, well, you could fit in another 10 units there, and that kind of you get some kind of economies of scale in that regard. But also, like you have to. It's a more extensive project. You have to have like more personnel to it, and like talk to the right people in the county, get the proper approvals and whatnot.
Yeah, of course. It's just like a development project, right? The juice has to be worth the squeeze if you're going to put in all this time and money, and the cap rate's going to have to be there on the sales side, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm guessing you guys how long do you hold these properties for?
Typically it's for kind of a medium time frame. So, between like 3 and 7 years is the typical target. However, when we look at these projects and like what to do with it, we're always thinking from the perspective of our investors, like what's the best move for them? Would it be to refinance and hold it on for the long term, or would there be a better arbitrage somewhere else? Should we take our chips and run? Maybe like the environment is changing within that state and we're like, okay, our original plan isn't really playing out, so like let's move it to another project.
Sure. Okay. Are there any KPIs that you track, let's say on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, to know if a park is either improving or not improving? Like, let's say, delinquency rates or collections percentages, things like that.
Yeah, so delinquency and collections are super important. um I mean, this is high number of units, like mobile home parks, like there's a lot of units and a lot of people to kind of manage, and they're not as I mean, they're from a different demographic, so it's not like these people are super well off and they just have everything on auto pay. For the most part they do, but sometimes you have to do like chase after them, maybe come up with like payment plans and stuff like that to kind of just bridge the gap a little bit. So there's that. There's the kind of um, make ready rates. So like how many units are ready to go? How long are they sitting on the market? You want to kind of gauge that just like for your future business plan as well, to kind of underwrite better in that market. And then obviously like, budget versus actual, like, okay, we kind of anticipated X dollars for snow plowing. Where are we right now? And like, if there's a variance, like why? Like this year we got hit with a brutal, brutal winter storm. And like
Yeah.
we we popped all of our budgets for snow plowing, which kind of sucks. But that's just part of the game. Sometimes it's not like you can control it.
Yeah, I mean, so outside of that guy that you said that brought in an AK-47, are there any other instances where you had rule violators or maybe some people just abandoning their homes, anything like that?
Yeah, well, so that guy that brought in the AK, that was at a buddy's apartment complex, not a mobile
Oh,
home park.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah. But as far as like the rule violations, it is very important to keep a good eye on it. That's why we work closely with our on-site managers to kind of make sure like these places are kept up. There tends to be junk laying around. People like want to work on their cars or something. They just like don't think twice. But you just have to remind them and kind of stay on the good side of the municipality, because like they want you to clean it up, and you want your residents to clean it up too. So to stay on top of that as well.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like you've been super successful in the mobile home space, but what, if any, failures have you had in investing in either mobile homes or just real estate in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I would say like failures are uh, the first attempt at learning, right? Or first attempt in learning, which
Yeah.
is great. And like as kind of entrepreneurs, as an entrepreneurial organization, like we really want to just lean into our failures, like because you're never gonna win if you don't move past failure, right? Like if you play it too safe, then like what are you doing? Versus like if you just don't get back up after you fall down, like how are you going to learn how to ride a bike if you don't get back up? So yeah, I mean there's a few things like underestimating the amount of work that it takes to run park owned homes. Especially like when you have a lot of them in your inventory, it's a lot of like little things that you have to do, and like there's something always wrong, and there's like a perpetual cash bleed on your budget, just like okay, what now, what now. So yeah, I mean just various things that kind of change how we look at deals. And us, because we operate our own assets, and we're very conscious of our current bandwidth of like, okay, do we want this like super heavy value add deal? This is ugly, but we can get it at an amazing price. Like, probably not, because we can't run it well. And having like setting aside your ego to be like, hey, we're not going to be able to knock everything out the park. We have to be very selective of our limited resources, which is our time and our effort. So just knowing that has been a great lesson.
I love that. Let's pivot over to the your capital raise structure. What does that look like? So when you're raising capital for these deals, is there an education piece that you have to tell the investors about versus like a multifamily deal, for example, or and then on top of that, I'll have questions after for you, but the main struggle, I guess,
Yeah.
with capital raising, or what does that
Yeah.
look like at the moment?
Yeah, I think for us, like we really emphasize investor education. I mean, obviously, it's like not financial advice, but like our kind of overarching philosophy. So, I started as a LP. That's how I got into real estate. So, starting this firm, like we want to be the GPs that we wish we had as LPs. So we really emphasize on like just education, like free education. It's not like you have to buy a course or something. Like we just educate you about the asset class. We walk you through the ups and the downs, like the risk factors, like everything. And we don't even care if you invest with us. Like we just want to make you a better investor. That's kind of how we view it. And that's like kind of ties into like why I even go on podcasts, is like just to see the long tail of like putting out good value and like putting the good energy out there. That's kind of what we like. And for investors, they enjoy that. And most people like they'll tell their friends or something, and that's actually what leads to some kind of inbound investor interest. Is like over the years you kind of like tell people enough like that they'll tell their friends.
Love that. Yeah. So how do you structure your deals with your LPs?
So we typically do well, I would say there's a mix of kind of single asset syndications and then others that are more joint ventures. So just depending on the size of the deal, we're not kind of like a one size fits all shop. So there are certain deals that we bring in investors on. They'll write a check between like I don't know like 50K to 500K. And then others that are like, well, this deal's small enough, like we have enough cash on hands between like, like a group of us. So like, let's just take it down together. And yeah, I mean, it's a mix of both.
And you're a 506c, yes?
We've done both, six
Okay,
and B. I
gotcha.
think a lot of it is like learning like what makes sense, what serves our investor well, what kind of makes more sense. But yeah, we've done kind of everything.
So if you're bringing on, let's say it's a $7 million deal, and you got to raise, I don't know, two point something $1 million, um, what would the splits between the GP and the LP look like?
It really depends. I mean, I would say we work backwards. And the reason I'm not giving you like kind of like, oh hey, here's our split is because like there really is no like two deals that are the same, and we kind of think through it. So we look at the business plan itself, and we're like, okay, how much work does this need? How much risk are we taking on as the GPs? What's the business plan? How long are we holding on to this for? Because like if it's a 2 year project, like okay, we don't need to get paid as much necessarily, right? As opposed to like, hey, 7 years, okay, like we need to stick it out. And like, can we ever get non-recourse debt? That's very important because the people don't talk about this enough, especially GPs, is that like their risk to reward ratio is like kind of off. Like you sign your entire balance sheet onto a bank and you're like, look, if we screw up, you can come after me. Like you could take away everything that I have. And to have that on your books is something that people have to underwrite. Yeah, with that being said, it generally depends. I mean, we've done anything between like 70/30 to 50/50 above a preferred return. But, for the investors, like what they really care about is like what's net in my pocket. Like
Sure,
end of the day,
sure.
like cash money, like how much am I putting in my pocket? And like, generally like we target around like 15 to 20% returns, like, and that's annually. So I think that's like kind of also the going rate of like equity kind of investments out in the market. So I would challenge it and take it a step further and say like the what distinguishes kind of us from another is the asset class. Like, do people like the mechanics of mobile home parks? Hey, look, it's recession resilience, durable demand, like all that stuff. Do they like us as a sponsor group? Do they feel like we can take care of their capital? Because like anyone can have the same splits, like the same net returns. Like anybody could dress up in Excel to look like anything. But
1000%.
who's the guy behind it, right? Can I talk to you? Like my investors, they all have my direct number. Like they could reach out to me. They could talk to someone in charge. Like I've been a part of like other like LP deals. Like I can only talk to the investor relations guy, and like
I
I get
know.
like a bland response, or like they'll straight up ignore me because like they're too big, and it's like I don't want that.
Yeah.
So thinking about that, and also just like the actual market that you're investing in.
No, I love that. It also sounds like you are, because you when you were talking about the lending situation, you got to figure out if it's recourse or non-recourse. So it you don't work with one lender, and you're also getting different terms, it sounds like, for each different deal. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's different kind of debt products, so to speak, that we work with. We kind of right size it. Sometimes the asset's bigger. Okay, fine. Like we can work with maybe let's say a national lender. They'll lend on this. We'll take it to the agencies. So like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac afterwards to get a non-recourse kind of back end after the refinance. Others are like smaller deals. So maybe it's like a regional bank, and it's very relationship driven, and like there's also some degree of risk because it's like how well do they know the asset class, and like are they going to pull out last minute just because like yeah, sometimes like regional banks, like it's a little bit of a black box. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Sure. Have you ever worked with family offices, or has this been all just private funded investor relations, high net worth individuals?
Not officially. I mean, we've spoken with some family offices, some private equity shops, because like they're very eager to deploy capital into the manufactured housing community space because it's just durable yields. It's like a coupon clipper, right? If you have a good operator, like it's a simple business model, it's durable yield, but it's hard to operate. So like they want to find good kind of emerging operators, like kind of bet on the horse a little bit. So like we've had those conversations. We haven't pulled the trigger yet. I think a big reason that we started this firm is that we ourselves, like we wanted to give access to these kind of unique deals to our community. So like our friends and family, a lot of them are investors, and subsequently, like just through networking and stuff. So we want to offer that as long as we can, before like we just get too big or whatever happens.
Love that. Love that. Well, Leo, that's all the questions that I have for you today. If anybody wanted to find you, drop us some links and let us know how they could add value to you.
Yeah, so two ways to reach out. One, if you want to learn more about our team, mobile home parks as an asset class, maybe even joining our investor waitlist, you can go to our website. That's cornellcommunities.com. So it's spelled CornellCommunities.com. Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's Leo Young, LeoYoung, and Instagram, it's Leo Young Real Estate.
Young Real Estate. I'll have all of those in the show notes for you. And how could people add value to you?
Wow. I think if you reach out, just let me know what you learn. I mean, I'm always very curious to like talk to people. I love to connect and educate where I can. I think that would be the best. I mean, if you want to invest, that would be great as well. Would love to see if it's a good fit. And then, if you have a mobile home park, let's talk. Let's, try to see if we can make something happen. So yeah, those are the three things.
Awesome. Appreciate your time today, brother.
Definitely. Thank you.
And that's a wrap. If you've made it this far, that means you've listened to the entire episode, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening from. And if you've learned something or found it useful, share it with one of your homies. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm pretty active on IG. My handle is pro_TANH. Reach out, let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, or what you want to hear about in the future. I'm here to tailor this to you. Until next time.